Welcome everyone to Jai After Dark. I am Sameem. I'm here with my co-host Shabnam. How's it going? What's up?
Hey.
I know.
Hey, Sameem.
Hey,
this was a crazy one, right? Yeah. Hey, you.
Today we're going to be discussing You on Netflix, episodes 7 through 10, season 5. Hey, are you happy that Joe Goldberg is going to stop harassing my Netflix screen? For the last 12 years, it's just been you coming or you watch it some more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
This motherfucker's been all over our Netflix home screens. Every time you're looking for something, he's there. So I'm really happy that this is over.
Yeah, I am. I'm really happy too. It's a crazy series and it was dragging on. So I'm glad it came to a close. I'm also kind of happy we got a little bit of justice, although there's a lot of shenanigans and some weirdness. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a little too campy for me.
Yeah.
Anna Camp was the campiest and good for her, but she did a good job acting in her role, but the whole season was a little campy.
Yeah. I think we said that last week. I think it's really hard to end a series like this with so many murders, so many details that you can't remember everything. They kept bringing in details from seasons 1 through 4. They brought back Marianne. They brought back all these supposedly dead characters. Nadia.
Yeah.
It's just a lot, man. It's like I have a life outside of you. It's really hard to keep up with 14 characters, and then you bring them all back.
I know.
This is some sort of Avengers scene where Robert Downey Jr.'s character dies, and then they're all standing there, every Avenger ever. So it reminded me of that a little bit when Bronte was doing her "I'm a badass bitch" walk out.
Exactly. You know why it's hard to end a series like this? Because this is not how life works. It wouldn't end so neatly where they all get together and all the victims are friends. And it's not going to happen.
Marianne's she was already hot and now she's even hotter. She's had this complete glow up. Everyone's in amazing shape, even though they've been through all this trauma. Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Right? Nadia looks great and she's been in prison for 5 years.
Yeah.
And she looks amazing. Her skin is glowing.
Oh man,
I don't remember that from Orange is the New Black.
I know, right? Bronte, yeah. Oh, they made Bronte a little dowdier than she was.
You think so?
Yeah. When
what do you mean
you
dowdier?
see her now,
sorry, I don't know what that word.
Just they made her eyes seem more sunken and her hair seem more scraggly and stuff like that. But I'll talk about Bronte and some other stuff in tea time.
Yeah. So. Look, if people have listened to our episodes before, they know we could just get into it, right? And we could go off on every sort of negative aspect that you displayed on our screen. And I guess the biggest one is misogyny and or white man privilege. I'm not really sure what the goal was at the end of this series, but what do you think was the overall arching theme? Because you're totally correct. It seemed like it got a little campy, but they were also trying to make a very specific point.
Yeah.
What is that
I
point?
I think the point was more about women and domestic violence and how women get into these situations and why they get into them and how it can go bad and how it can potentially get resolved. I think that's what they were trying to hit on. But it was strange because in episode 10, at the end of episode 9, I think, we sort of have the switch where Bronte also becomes a narrator, right?
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to figure out how to close the series. And so they did this thing to elevate it and to give it a good message. But it didn't have the same feel as the rest of the series. It was sort of artistically it felt strange, but from a public message perspective, I liked it.
Yeah. Whatever gets more eyeballs on this sort of behavior from men, why not? Because there are many people out there with issues like this. Of course, I don't really know what you can do to deal with someone like Joe Goldberg in your life, but the manipulation and the way that he's able to even convince Bronte to come back sort of to him in episodes 8 and 9 before she does her flip again because she meets Marion. So she says, "You're an abuser, Joe," which I think is really hard for women to tell men. So I think that's one major point that they wanted to really get out there. And then the second one was when she was like, "There you are. You're just a misogynist." But I feel like he's a misogynist, but all the other gory details of his personality, that's what made him super compelling. It wasn't the misogyny part, So she does call him out, but it's she didn't call him a murderer. She didn't call him a psychopath. Like, there's a lot of, I'm not saying misogyny is good. I'm saying, like, if I was about to take someone down that did all of these sort of ridiculous things, I think I would use harsher language. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. I think the thing is, like, the whole series has been toying with him as a murderer all along.
Yeah.
What they haven't really addressed is that he was a misogynist. So I think they're trying to be like, hey, guys, in case it wasn't obvious before, he's also a misogynist. He's doing this just to women, right? So another interesting thing I saw Penn Badgley say in a TikTok is that where Joe does the most damage is actually the bedroom, not that cage, because that's where he does all the manipulation that allows him to do what he does in the cage. That's a really interesting perspective. So I think they were trying to really portray that. There's all this other manipulation, misogyny, like hate for women, potentially. Like it's like he hates women, but he really wants their validation, you know. And I think that obviously comes from his mom.
That's
right?
an abandonment. This is a very typical abandonment issue, because at the end of the series, you're totally correct. He literally yells, "I can't be alone." He didn't want to go to prison alone. He wanted her to murder him. So his abandonment issues. Like, come on, we were raised in a society where all of us have abandonment issues. So but this is like another level. Right.
Yeah.
But they did go into it a little bit further, where he tells Bronte that when he was 12, his mom dropped him off at a group boys' home. And from there, the man was very harsh on him. Right. And then he starts crying during the PR scene with Maddie. So he's got a lot of like baggage and stuff. The most hilarious part of all of this was, finally, I said in the first episode that we did with episodes 1 and 2 for season 5, why has nobody ever said, "Where is your therapy?" And at that point, Maddie yells, "You never worked this out in therapy? You're working it out now?" Yeah. So she's the only one. Finally, somebody called out this male fragile ego, right? He's a fragile, insecure person, and she finally called him out.
Yeah, but she's one to talk. She needs a lot of therapy herself. Yeah. But also,
she was half Reagan, half Maddie at that point, though.
Right. Right. That's true. But also, he's not the kind of person that would ever go to therapy unless a court ordered him to, because he doesn't think anything is his fault. He thinks that he's been this victim his entire life, from his mom to that man who locked him in the cage, his father figure, I guess you could say. And from there on out, he's the victim, and he doesn't see himself as like, I've grown up, I've moved on from that. He still sees himself as that kid that everybody victimized.
Yeah.
You know,
it develops a sense of control within you, I think. Also, abandonment issues, like, you really need to make sure that your life is going to be stable. And in Joe's mind, stability comes from women, because he didn't have it before. So I think he's living in a small fantasy world within his own head, beyond the serial killing. I'm talking about specifically love. It's just, I don't know. Would it be better for him to get a roommate, right? Instead of
a roommate
having,
would
like,
never fulfill him, because he needs this emotional validation and admiration. I think he's like a narcissist psychopath, right? He needs this adoration and admiration and real emotional enmeshment for him to feel good. But then he also wants that person to see him for who he is, which is a terrible human being, and love him anyways. Which, again, this is another thing. It's like, no one's going to love you like that except for maybe your parents, and when you're a child, not even necessarily when you're an adult.
Well,
so
is that true though?
Yeah.
Because in this series, he does tell multiple women that he's a murderer, and they're all a little interested still. Like, nobody like pulls the Band-Aid and is like, "No, oh, you're a murderer? Maybe I should leave."
I mean, because they're dysfunctional too, right? But they're not that
huge
dysfunctional.
Step up from dysfunction to murdering.
Sure.
He was,
yeah.
You're totally right though, because his biggest asset, I guess, in his brain is the bedroom. That's where he was trying to convince Bronte that she's a murderer as well. He like picked a random girl.
Yeah, and Kate, that she's a murderer as well too, which she is in some senses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's just less directly a murderer, which I don't know, can be worse potentially. I don't know.
I think we brought this up last time, is being complicit in something like the same as being involved in it. And it could be, right? In today's
Well, I don't
world,
even know that it's complicit. I don't even know that it's complicity with her, right? Because she made fraudulent papers, and she basically created a situation where all these kids would die, right? That's not just complicity. That's definitely direct action. She just doesn't have to like look in their eyes as she kills them. So she thinks that she's a better person. I mean, I really don't think that's necessarily
Well, what did you think about Kate
Yeah.
as a character now? She's been in 2 seasons, so she does seem to be a pretty confused character. She's obviously not all bad. They really try to make her not all bad, but when you continuously call someone an indirect murderer, as she is, she also gave the okay to murder Uncle Bob. There's nothing redeeming after that.
Yeah.
And they did redeem her.
And I don't necessarily like that she was a hero.
She should be dead at the end of the episode. I don't mean
Yeah,
dead like
I
a real
think-
person, like I'm going to go kill someone. I mean like
Yeah.
the writing. She
Not
should,
like Joe.
She should,
Yeah.
Yeah, she shouldn't have survived.
I think so too. I think you're right.
The writing, I can kind of see how the ending came about. All these women came back, which is great. The power was there. They got the power back, but I guess they also had the power to resurrect.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
they got
seriously.
all powerful by the end of the series. So I don't know. What do you think about Teddy becoming CEO and then switching the entire company to a nonprofit? That's another campy ass thing that I wanted to bring up. That's like the most, that would never happen. Hey, if our parents had some corporation, they gave it to us, are we that goodwill that we would be like, hey, I'm going to turn this entire $100 billion organization into a nonprofit? And the size of their organization is like a Fox Corp, which is a massive corporation. So I don't even know legally if you could do that. I thought that was pretty campy as well. It was so like, it was too good natured.
Yeah, I don't know if it could be done legally either. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was super campy, agreed. And the whole ending is somewhat of a liberal fantasy. I feel like it would never.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
It's not.
Are we about to go anti-woke?
No, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of what they put out there. I just don't think that's how life works. Right.
No, this was too perfect. Like everything, all this murdering and lying and cheating and everybody's fine. Come on.
So this is my title that I put for these 4 episodes. I called it Women Fail to Reason with Psychopath and Then Shoot His Dick Off. That was that's my title.
So that's a great title because the show was all serious and even I was getting emotional, right? When Bronte and Joe were going back and forth and stuff. And then all of a sudden she shoots him in the fucking dick.
Yeah.
And then the internet comments turn into he used to be a 10 and now he's a 2-inch. Like, did you see the comments when they were rolling the comments? And I agree with you. The writing, that's like a little lazy.
Yeah.
They had something going. It was good. It was getting better. I was excited for episode 10. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, let me just shoot this motherfucker in the dick after she defied all sorts of death-defying logic that she should be dead too.
Even just jumping from the second story with a bum ankle already. I'm like, I don't.
Well, she couldn't walk the day before, so how did she do that? And then he choked her out.
And she was already shot.
And it was bad. She's like pushing on the gunshot, and then he's choking her out in the lake, and then all of a sudden she pulls out of the lake, finds him before a bunch of cops.
Yeah.
And in that time, he also kills a cop. So I don't know if that says something about cops. But we can leave it there. Maybe that was a commentary on maybe people should do their jobs a little bit better. It was a little strange that Bronte came out of nowhere and she's the one that, what is the word? Decapacitated him? Let's say if he had a gun.
Incapacitate.
Is that
You're
what
right.
it is?
It's incapacitate.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's make sure we got this right. If Joe Goldberg was in front of you with a knife or a gun, and you successfully took it from him, what would that be called? How can we use that in a sentence? Incapacitated him? I still don't know if we're correct.
I still don't feel like it's exactly correct, but
Our
like if you knocked him out.
This one word is driving me nuts for the last 2.5 weeks. Or 2.5 episodes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so hashtag Joe Goldberg is a thing, which is also interesting because that is a comment on society's voyeuristic nature of really wanting to see people do terrible things, look at it up close, idealize them and then make them fall from their high position. So it's pretty, I don't know, it's kind of, that was an interesting commentary on us. right?
But is there anything like that? Like, I know there's been downfalls of powerful people, but this seems... I'm trying to think of a true crime where a man actually got taken down, like Harvey Weinstein or something, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I feel like the closest thing is Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, because she's part of this sweetheart couple. And then based on sort of different things that her husband did during, Deadpool and all this stuff, it's really tarnished their reputation as this Hollywood it couple, and that they are on the right side of everything. So I could see that happening, because that was Joe, right? Joe was Kate's knight in shining armor, and he then fell from grace. Yeah. So
there's been a lot of people that fall from grace, but look, celebrities are whatever, right? In my life, who gives a shit? But whatever Ryan Reynolds did, I don't think he did anything remotely similar to what Joe Goldberg's doing.
No, of course not.
So
yeah.
If this motherfucker just wants to be powerful and he wants Hollywood to like him, it seems like that's all Ryan Reynolds does, which I within itself is kind of lame to seek that much validation your entire life, but whatever, it gets him off, right? But I don't think there's anything there that... We did an episode on Justin and Blake Lively, and the only reason we did it because those voice notes were so hilarious that I wanted to play them on our podcast. And the actual substance of it, we don't know. She seems off. He seems kind of a weirdo. And Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool 24/7. So I don't know. To me, I think it was compelling, and then people are like, oh shit, it's actually not that compelling.
Yeah.
It fell off a cliff, can we... But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. So I want to talk a little bit more about when Bronte had Dane in the cage, and Joe's like, I'm going to leave you here. Just talk to him and you decide his fate. I don't know. The whole thing is so frustrating.
Him trying to make her a murderer, right?
Yeah. Him trying to make her a murderer, him like manipulating her into seeing sort of his side of things. And she does see it, right? She sees that Dane is a bad guy, right? But she doesn't want to kill him. She doesn't want to kill him because she's a normal person.
Yeah. And this is the first girl that's come into this series that doesn't just want to come kill because Joe said so. Love Quinn, Kate, they were killing too.
Yeah. So but she lets him go. She says she takes his phone number and passwords and whatever so they can surveil him. Creepy, but better than Joe, right? And so she does that, but then she tells him that she needs autonomy, and they decide that they like trust each other, and she says she just wants to know that he would kill for her, like hypothetically, but he doesn't need to actually do it. And I'm like, what kind of I don't know.
Yeah,
it's really... I mean, I suppose everybody wants to know that their partner would like protect them, but he is a murderer. You already know that. So this is not hypothetical. And then he actually does go stab that guy. Yeah. So he can't even respect her when she's like, hey, I don't really want to kill this guy. I want you to listen to me and give me autonomy on how to deal with somebody that did something shitty to me. And he overrides that, disrespects her, and goes and kills someone, which I don't know why I'm stuck on him disrespecting her since he's killing someone. But I'm just saying, like, even for somebody he loves, he can't respect them.
Yeah. You know? Well, I think that you're 100%. You're completely correct. I think that's the ultimate commentary that he's doing. Okay, so just to give some context on why murder is the worst thing on earth, in every religion, it's a major sin, right? And I'm not saying all religions are correct or anything like that, but the major sins are pretty like major. Yeah. So murdering someone it's not allowed. This guy is so bad that he's taking innocent women and he's trying to turn them into murderers so he can feel a little bit better about himself.
He's trying to
he's just like a terrible, terrible person beyond even the murdering.
Yeah, he's trying to like fuck them into being murderers.
Yeah, it's awful. It's like, it's so nasty too, what writer came up with this. But it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
The only situation I know, it's just so bad, right, Shabnam? Like, people that are married to each other and they would like murder people and hide them in their basements. There's like stories, right, from the 50s and 60s.
There is stories.
And stuff.
Yeah, there's totally stories.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, it's you know, the sad thing is, as crazy and as bad as it is and as clear as we can see that because the show made this story that's allowing us to talk about it, I don't think this is like so uncommon. Like you're saying, we've heard of stories. I'm sure there's a lot of stories we don't hear about. It's really, really crazy.
This guy could have,
but
if he would have gotten her to kill, it would have been his ultimate success.
Yeah.
Right? He just.
But the crazy part is he goes into the cage. She gets him to go into the cage to confront him and talk to him about it. And he starts getting anxiety being in the cage for a short amount of time. I'm like, this is so hypocritical. He wants to portray himself as so strong and such a protector, but he's so incredibly weak. You know, he can't even take like 10 minutes of something he puts people through for days and days and days until he kills them. You know,
I mean, that's the point. And that's what every hypocrite in the world is, right? It doesn't have to be putting themselves in a box. They're not going to do anything that they inflict on others. That's the whole point of being a narcissist, right?
Yeah.
He's never going to take it.
Yeah, and so he says it's who I am, but he still wants her to see who he is, like I said, and he wants her to love him anyways and excuse the fact that he does all this stuff and just take everything he does.
And at that point, she's on his side.
Yeah.
That's before she meets Marianne.
But you know why she's on his side? Because she tells him, no, you're doing it because you think that you have to prove your love to people, but I can love you anyway. You just need to trust me. So she doesn't believe him when he says, I'm a murderer. This is who I am. She's like, no, you're great. God, and I'll fix you. My love will fix you. Right. And this is a thing women do to a lesser extent, hopefully, and not as often to this extent. But like a lot of people will be like, oh, no. Like, I mean, even just little simple things, right? Oh, I don't want a relationship. And then they'll try it anyways. You've been in that position.
You got to bring up my trauma. It's not trauma.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a challenge. Women will take it as a challenge. But to this extent, it's so super fucking toxic.
Okay. Well, she takes it even further. Bronte does. Mm-hmm. She basically leaves Kate to burn alive and saves Joe, and she's like, I'm the one that's going to get Joe.
You know
Isn't
why
that crazy?
I thought it's really, really crazy, but the only reason why in the moment I was kind of okay with that was I thought that she touched Kate's body, she like moved Kate's body around. I thought that she knew that Kate had died, and so she was like, there's no way to save her, and the fire is burning, so he's
Joe's
still
up.
alive.
Yeah, I get it, but it's the lazy writing I think we already discussed where everyone just comes back to life very conveniently.
Yeah.
She's either dead or she's not. If you put your 2 fingers on a pulse, like you should be able to feel or hear something, but whatever. It's a high stress situation. I don't know what I would do in a fire that my sister-in-law who just killed her sister set. Right? So it's like
no, it wasn't her sister-in-law. It was
Joe's sister-in-law, but
Joe's sister-in-law. Yeah.
But she had to leave her there because Kate had to come back. And the thing that I wanted to bring up about Kate also is why is she not in jail at the end of the series as well? That's another strange plot point that got missed. She should 100% be in prison or jail.
I think they should have let her die. And I think they wanted to wrap it up where Henry gets her back as a mom. But I think they should have just had Teddy adopt Henry because she is not a good person either. Like the thing is, if you look at all the other women when they were confronting him in the box, they were all really emotional. She was really unemotional, right? And I think that's because she knows how to deal with this kind of person because she had the experience with her dad. But I don't know, maybe that says something about her potentially as well, right?
Yeah.
That she's really, really shut off. But the other thing I didn't like about those scenes of them trying to, like Nadia getting all emotional, and then I'm calling her Nadia, the Western pronunciation, because that's how Kate calls her, but like Nadia also, she like her getting all emotional, crying to Joe, and then Marianne get crying to Joe. Again, this is another fantasy, and I feel like I
thought they were about to bring back Beck. Just kidding, Beck's alive
seriously.
too.
Yeah, I know.
They're going to bring everyone back.
But it's like this confrontation fantasy, you know, and I feel like when people have trauma, you always have this confrontation fantasy. One day I'm going to get to confront this person. Yeah. A lesser version of it is wanting closure in a shitty relationship too. And you never get it because when people treat you badly, they're not going to validate your feelings for closure or give you any, you know, any acknowledgement.
only if the other person wants the closure as well. That's the only way it would happen. You're totally correct. Like, I tried it last week. I already told the story on Tuesday, but I shouldn't have gone. Like, it fucked up my day, right?
And that's such a lesser version of this, right? He's a complete sociopath. He thinks everything is his. And I use these terms, psychopath, sociopath, narcissist. I don't really know. Like, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist or anything like that. I'm just using them colloquially. But he thinks he's the biggest victim. So he's never going to see what they did to him. And he never does. So it's falling on deaf ears, and they just keep doing it. And I feel like it's for the watcher more than it's for him, right? But it's weird because I'm like, you're not getting anywhere. So what is the point? I feel like in a real life scenario, there would be nothing that you would get out of that except for more frustration. Because that kind of person will never acknowledge and never validate you.
Then why do they come back? Yeah, I guess it was just for the TV show. But yeah, to have that many exes in one room in front of a murderer seemed a little... You're right. I think it's a very forced sort of fantasy. And yeah, to have like breakup conversations like a few weeks later to get some closure, I think there's some good that can be attached to it because you want to learn and what you did wrong so you don't do it in your next relationship potentially. So there's some good that can come from it. And it's usually at a time where the bad breakup has already passed. So I do understand sort of saying your piece, but Joe's piece is, I'm right, you're wrong. I did a lot for you. Why can't you see that I did all this good stuff for you? The narcissism is probably the biggest trait that I can see when things come out like that. And the murder is almost secondary. That's a biological function that he needs to get out because they show it when he wants to murder Reagan's husband. He starts stabbing the chair. And then he's like, okay, I'm really happy for you guys.
Yeah. And they're like, what the hell?
Yeah. So they know that he's a murderer, right? Yeah. So, and then he ends up putting them in jail anyways.
Yeah.
Right
so
after
insane.
that scene. So I didn't see that coming. I thought him, Maddie, and Harrison, right? What's the... Yeah. I thought they were going to like be all okay, but right away he's like, nah, I'll go to prison. So it's not just the murdering. So I've actually thought about this a lot. Like, and I'm going to tell you where it came from, and it's random. No one's going to be surprised. But do you remember that movie Barbershop with Ice Cube? It came out in 2001 or something. Yeah. And then there's 3 subsequent barbershops or something like that. But the first one is classic, right? Southside Chicago. Ice Cube has to get his barbershop up and running, or he gets it from his dad, but he's in a lot of debt, so he accidentally sells it to somebody that wants to convert it to a strip club. The movie's hilarious. Anyways, his cousin is trying to rob an ATM down the street. So they take like Ice Cube's truck or something like that, and they like try to grab the ATM and steal it. So then he calls his cousin and he's like, why the fuck did you use my truck? And he's like, wait, the cops think it's your truck? And Ice Cube is like, yeah, and he's the main character, so you know he's not going to go to jail, right? But then his cousin is like, all right, well, have fun in prison, bitch. And he calls him all these names, and he's basically like, see you in 10 years. How could you send someone to jail or prison, right? And that's another thing about Joe and Kate that I wanted to bring up is we keep talking about murdering and manipulation and stuff like that, but to have somebody sitting in jail or prison locked up because of something that you did, and you're supposedly supposed to be a good person, Kate, or I guess she's not, but, and also in that Ice Cube movie, that guy's not like a complete degenerate, though he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's a really strange thing that happens in movies a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me like,
and
think
maybe in the world.
Almost worse. Oh, of course. Yeah. I don't know if it happens in the real world. I'm sure we know innocent people.
I'm
go
sure
to jail.
It does. Yeah.
But to like have that sort of like personal level involvement, it'd be wild. You got to live with that. I understand you murder someone, but look, when you murder someone, that person's gone, right?
Yeah.
It's fucked up to say it like that. But when you don't murder them and you put them in jail, they're just sitting there and they know what you did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's pretty bad too.
Wild. Yeah, it's really crazy. Okay, so we have to talk about the conversation between Bronte and Marianne before the... Is it Marianne or Marianne? Marianne, right?
I think it's Marianne, right? E-N-N-E?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so, yeah. So before the whole bookstore burns down and Bronte comes around the bookstore and she lets Bronte in and she has this deep conversation with Bronte where Marianne jolts her into realization right? And she says, men like Joe catch you off guard, even though the voice in the back of your mind is saying, don't be fooled, because it feels so good to love him and be loved by him. And she says, it can't be you being fooled because you're smarter than those women that you basically judge, right? And he's got you so fooled, you don't know who you are. I was just like,
that's all it took. And then she reversed.
Well, and that's the part that I don't think is realistic. I don't think it's that simple and that quick, right? I think maybe these realizations happen over time, but they're not that quick, right?
Well, it was pretty convincing when 3 people walk in and they're like, he was a murderer and he technically murdered me. And she even looks at Joe, right, Marianne, and she's like, you should have killed me better, right? So
yeah,
that sort of stuff is truth and it is evidence. So Bronte saw that or experienced that. And then
she experienced it from Kate. She experienced it from Kate and from Marion, because Kate also has a conversation with her when Kate goes to visit her
that's right,
in the apartment when she's packing up. But Kate's a little more removed. She's a little more cold in the conversation. Marion's like very empathetic, you know.
Also has Beck, and she knew that he killed Beck too. That's initially how she started all this. So to go off on that because of falling in love with him, essentially, that was kind of strange to move away from that. And then she came back to him. Then she went away from him again. So Bronte realizes that he killed all these people, but for her to not believe it in the middle of the series, I didn't really buy that, right? Because all these years, think about if you watched some propaganda network for 3 straight years. Every day, 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day, whatever it is. That's what her, Dom, Clayton, and Phoenix were doing.
Yeah.
They were taking in all kinds of anti-Joe propaganda, and then she meets him all of a sudden. She's like, no, he's cool. He's hot.
But don't you think that happens in real life too?
Of course it happens in real life. It happens.
Yeah. Even politically, if you look at the last like 5 to 7 years, how many people do you know that like changed their mind, went from one persuasion to the other persuasion,
I don't really mean
back
politics,
to the other persuasion?
I more mean when you take a healthy dose of information on a daily basis, weekly basis, hourly basis, whatever it might be, you do tend to believe things that might not be true because you're being presented with a reality, and we hear, see, and understand with the senses that we're given. So I think anything could be extremely difficult to get out of your head if you have that much exposure to it. But it's not just politics, right? Like I
also think
it could happen with anyone and any subject.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's also related to her individual trauma, right? And somebody in that position's individual trauma, he's fulfilling some kind of need of a form of a complete love that she feels like she didn't get. And that's why it's so alluring to her.
Everybody wants it, right? And then when Marianne says, this is how good it feels when he gets you, like, I want that too. Of course I want it, dude. You want someone that's so invested in you, but it's almost unnecessary, right? To be that attached to someone, even if you're going to love them forever and be married to them. It seems unhealthy, not just in a mental sense, but also in a day-to-day sense, right? Nobody can provide that much for you.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know. Do you think everybody wants it, or just a lot of people with trauma? That could include me and you, potentially.
Me, you, my exes. Everybody wanted it, and I liked it. I'm not going to lie. You know my ex. We spent a lot of time together all the time, right? We barely were apart, and it ultimately like wasn't the best idea. But it's probably not why we got divorced. But I wanted it too. Joe really wants it, though. I don't want it that bad. I'm pretty happy by myself right now, right? And Joe could never be alone.
But okay, why is like child rearing? Why do people say it's so hard? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a kid, but like, I think you tell me, I think it's hard because you have to just love your kid all the time, so completely in the middle of the night, when they spit up, you have to love your kid so completely and constantly and encompassingly because they're a child, right?
Yeah.
But if you love an adult, like with that intensity, you can't do that. You're going to burn out, right? Both of you guys will burn out. And I think that's why people go through roller coasters. And then the relationship becomes tumultuous, and then you get angry at each other with the same intensity. You get sad with each other with the same intensity as you feel joy, right? And it's too much. That kind of all encompassing, intensely constant meshment is not appropriate for adults.
It's probably like 60, 70, 80% of courtships, marriages, relationships, though. Because when you see someone first, it's usually an attraction, right? Physical attraction.
Yeah.
So that physical attraction, you start building upon it, but then it's like, why? You started off on a weird foot that might change in the future, like just physical attraction, right? So I don't know. I think that's probably why things go down south pretty quick on 50% of marriages. Maybe it's just we're not dating with intent, right? Joe's only dating for not even love, like he's dating for obsession. Right?
Yeah, and he's dating for someone to fulfill his trauma.
Empty trauma, insecure heart, right? So
versus
he's so soulless.
Yeah, versus, you know how people always say, marry your friend. How do this long relationships last? It's because these people are friends, right? And that's the thing with your friends, you have boundaries. Like you can't expect your friend to all the time fulfill every need. And I feel like that's what a stable relationship is. Like sometimes that person's not going to be able to fulfill your shit and you have to be okay with that and then be their friend still. Like, you know.
If anybody wants to fulfill my shit, I'm ready. I'm just kidding. But I'm glad you brought that up because I had some weird thoughts last night. And I'm hesitant to bring this up here, but it's not real, everyone. It's a joke. But I've been watching basketball a lot, right? And I've been talking to you about it. We went to the Clippers Warriors game in San Francisco a few weeks ago, which was super fun. Basketball's been on every single night because first round playoffs, second round playoffs are going on now. Yeah. But there's multiple games because there's still so many teams involved. I was watching basketball last night, and then Sophie left early because she was promised presidency of mock trial for 2 years, and they didn't give it to her yesterday, so she got upset. And then her mom and her went home.
Yeah.
So then I started watching basketball. I was pretty sad. And what you just said about kids in general, I was feeling her. I was feeling her being down. And
disappointment.
I could literally sense it within myself. But then I started watching basketball and stuff, and I was like, man, it'd be really nice to have like a dude here and we're like just talking about basketball and then we maybe go play basketball. Like we don't do anything sexually, but I can kind of see the appeal of having somebody around just to have them around. And I try to go gender fluid only because to sort of prove the point that you're making where it's not so much the gender, right? And I think we brought this up a little bit a couple of days ago where if Joe found like a super cool dude that read books with him and, you know, they wrestled a little nakedly, don't you think he'd be satisfied? That's the route he probably should have gone. And it's giving me some thoughts where I'm like, maybe I can go hiking and swimming and surfing and play basketball.
You know, I think the sexually would mess it up, right? Like, to keep
I'm not
your
having
gender
sex
fluid
right now, so it's all good.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like, okay, in relation to Joe and maybe even in relation to you, right?
Yeah.
Whatever gender the person is, like say it's a person that you're definitely not having sex with.
Yeah.
I feel like having sex with someone, especially if you already have these tendencies, it facilitates a meshment.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
right?
of course.
Yeah.
It's a natural
It's
act.
another
Yeah.
aspect of it. Yeah. But then if you take that off the table, it kind of means, okay, well, maybe this is not a romantic thing. So then what you're talking about is a friend, right? And that's a good thing.
Like a real friend.
Like a mentor, like a roommate or a mentor or something, right?
Like an enmeshment partner. Give each other blowjobs and everything. Sorry, that's a White Lotus reference. Shout out.
Yeah. And in a sense, now I forgot I totally.
Oh, my bad. I should have thrown blowjob out there. You were saying, like, all I want is a friend. Like, I'm describing a friend.
But that's actually what your partner should end up being. And in a sense, that's how your parents should be when you're a kid. They should be your friend, although they need to like wipe your ass and all that. But they need to be your friend too when you're little, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like as you age, but
I understand what you're saying about the sex part, and of course I agree. Like I'm not a prude, but there's something about a marriage that after a few years, people start talking about the 7-year itch. In the 50s, it was really popular, like Lucy, the sitcoms, they had 2 twin beds, right? Mm-hmm. And I know in our community, a lot of people, you know, their parents sleep separate. I'm not going to say, I don't know how I know that. I just know that because when you go to people's houses, the dad's got his room, the mom's got her room, right? So
the man cave becomes where you just stay, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
And then they watch. Cause you know what it is, right? It's because they watch separate TV channels. I'm not talking about my parents, by the way. I'm talking about people in general. They watch different TV. But what I'm trying to say is, like, doesn't sex become less and less important as you move on in a marriage? Like I would imagine. Yeah.
And I almost think like this 7-year itch and stuff, I feel like it's more realistic when you're younger, right? And nowadays, a lot of people are like first marriage, second marriage, right? Because you're like younger, so maybe you want.
I'm right here.
No, I mean. No, I mean, because like I got married in my later 30s, right? So people will be like, oh, statistically, you just avoided your first divorce or whatever, right? People will say stuff like that because people get married younger and then they want to just like bang a lot of people. They get married to someone because they want to have sex with people, and then they don't necessarily like that person, or they end up not being attracted to that person in a couple of years or whatever, and then they get this like 7-year itch and all that crap.
Oh, yeah,
right?
you change when you're 22, 23 to when you're 35, both of you look completely different. Like you've
look
doubled
completely
in
different,
age.
want completely different things.
You want
like,
different things. Like I know I picked up hobbies after the age of 30 that I don't think my first wife would have been interested in. And frankly speaking, my hobbies now today, my second wife wouldn't have been interested in. So I agree with you. I guess I'm trying to avoid being murdered by my next partner, and you has put a lot of strange thoughts in my head. I'm being like completely serious because I've watched 5 seasons of this, and I'm gonna. Okay, look, like I was hesitant to bring this up, but since this is the last episode that we're doing, when my wife and I separated, it's already 2025. When we separated in 2023, I watched all of season 1 of You for some reason. I just binged it the day we separated. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I had already watched it. So I knew what I was about to watch. And I don't think it's because I was like, oh, I need to watch Joe Goldberg hate women and it's going to make me feel better. I don't necessarily know why I watched it.
I think I know why you watched it.
But why? Why do you think I watched it? I watched it that weekend and I watched all of it.
I think you watched it the same reason a lot of people watch it, and you binge it the same reason a lot of people binge it, because a lot of people can relate to having trauma and wanting someone to enmesh with them.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the murder thing, right? Like he hadn't even murdered Beck, right, until the 8th episode of season 1. So I did, but I wanted to watch it because there's some comfort to it.
A lot of people want someone to see who they are fully and accept them, and who they are fully is nothing that bad. They just have some regular ass weaknesses, right? I feel like I've had that in my life. I've had major insecurities for things that are relatively normal, and I do love that my husband accepts me for those things, but that's a lot different than someone like Joe who's like, hey, can you love me even though I'm a murderer? It's like, no, you got some work to do. So
Captain Save-A-Ho over here, Joe. Okay, last thing I want to bring up. Remember how we brought up how he gave Bronte an apartment and fell in love with her way too fast? This castle shit was really pissing me off. I'm sorry. That was the final nail in the coffin of our manic pixie girl dream sequence. She wants a fucking castle. Come on, shut up. I'm sorry.
Well,
I get that she was like manipulating him and she was trying to get him to like give her something, but a fucking castle, that's where you went?
Well, I also don't like her for that reason, but part of that is that she thinks like all of a sudden she's come to terms with the fact that she can peel herself away from the addiction of being loved by Joe, and she's like, now what I'm gonna do is like manipulate him back. It does not work like that.
Because she started doing the narration in her head and stuff. She was really trying to get Joe back.
You need to grow the thick scabs of Kate before you can fuck with someone like Joe.
She should not have been the hero. You're totally correct. It should have been Kate, Marianne, even Nadia. It could have been anybody. Bring Beck back, bring Love Quinn back. Bring Peaches back. He's like Peaches with self-defense, by the way.
Peaches would have been great.
She's like, you didn't kill me either.
Yeah. For her own sake, she should have been like, you know what? I can peel myself away from this addiction that I have of him. Yeah. I should move the heck on. Like, it's terrible. I mean,
other than her being, she wasn't a murderer, but she was just like Joe. She wanted all the love connection and the enmeshment. She wanted the fake fantasy. She wanted the fucking castle. She was like one of these like TikTok girls that are on the internet a little bit too much and they think they can make a difference, but nobody else can. Even though Kate had the inside track to take Joe down, right? So she kind of took over.
Yeah.
It was a little bit too Brontosaurus.
Yeah.
She grew up a little bit too much. She's like, I'm not Bronte, I'm Luis at the end of it. I'm like, do you literally just cosplayed Bronte? Like,
yeah, totally.
The one thing I didn't like either, she's making it seem like he sought her out. Bitch, you were in his bookstore breaking in and stuff. You started all this. Did you forget?
Yeah, it's so true.
I guess he started, he killed her TA, but you know.
Well, yeah. There's two major things that we need to just touch on. The first thing is a conversation with Henry and him when Henry calls him a monster. You always told me there was no monsters in my room, but you're the monster. And I was like, damn. Man, and you can see that cut him so deep. I think that's what made him really lose his shit.
It cut me too. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Imagine your kid saying that to you. It cut me too. I was a little emotional when he said that. I don't think I brought it up for that reason. He deserves it though.
He totally deserves it. And a lot of people maybe even can see themselves feeling like that as a kid about their parents, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great scene and it's hilarious. Okay, this guy comes out of nowhere and he logs into the kid's server. You know how illegal / difficult that would be? He logged into a Roblox server and then Joe was like, "Hey, what's up?" It's the most creepiest shit, dude.
So yeah. No wonder his kid
weird.
called him a monster.
Yeah, I'm just for that. Just for that, that's a monstrous thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm really sorry, Shabnam. I'm going to do it again. Dexter.
What?
At the end of Dexter, his son is named Harrison, which is hilarious because that's the husband's name. But
yeah,
when they're showing Kate's burns, he's staring at them because that's a mark that Joe left on her.
Yeah.
And in Dexter, it's the same exact scenario where Harrison does get Dexter's thirst for violence.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of is this kid going to become violent? I don't think it's foreshadowing because I think the show is done. I just think it's think about it. This kid's not safe yet. I think that's what they're trying to say. He's not safe yet.
Yeah.
Because he still has it in him.
Okay. And then the last part, you called it in our first episode on You.
What is it?
Where you were like, all these women are going to want conjugal visits with him. And you were exactly right. That's literally the last scene.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. That guy had sluts. Of course, this hot-ass Joe Goldberg educated motherfucker is going to have... She was like, fuck me in that letter. I was like, ugh. They were showing what they wrote. I'm like, ugh.
And then he says, why am I in a cage when these crazies write to me about what they want me to do to them?
Yeah.
Maybe we have a problem as a society. Maybe the problem isn't me, it's you. And that was great writing.
That's great because that's overall, that's him. He doesn't make mistakes. Everybody else is wronging him. But if everyone thinks you're an asshole, bro, you're the asshole, right?
Yeah.
And people have told me that before, so whatever. I accept my fate. So Joe, go fuck yourself, homie. You're the problem.
Yeah. Okay, should we do tea time?
Yeah, I have one thing that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
So he was reading the Executioner song at the end of the series, a book in his cell. The Executioner song is, I forgot the details, but it's a nonfiction book about someone that was the first person that was killed by the government after the moratorium on death penalty was lifted.
Wow, okay, interesting.
And the craziest part about the Executioner song, the guy, I don't remember his name. I think he started with a G. I don't know. He petitioned to get the death penalty. And they were saying, you have every right to not be killed. And he's like, nah.
Oh, wow.
He was like,
no, he wanted to die. He'd just rather die than be. So interesting.
There it is.
Oh, so that's
what
it is. Joe would rather die. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. This is a very campy ass show, but that book to be in on the last scene, it's pretty wild. I was like, holy shit, dude, some English literature PhD person came in and put that last reference in. That was a great reference.
Well, that's what's interesting about the show. The conversation with Henry and the conversation in his cell. There's a lot of magic, and then there's just some weird shit too. You know,
Yeah.
And what I was reading and listening to the actor saying is that Madeline Brewer, who plays Bronte, was saying that with the fight scene with her and Joe, she started to internalize it and imagine it so much and become the character so much, and they had to do it so many times that she ended up needing to take a break because her body just started kind of holding the trauma, and she started feeling so much anxiety. And then Penn Badgley, he said for Joe's character, remember in the bedroom when he's in his underwear and she's holding him at gunpoint?
Yeah.
So he said that he was supposed to be wearing wife beater, but he said, I don't want him to wear a wife beater because I think he should be as close to naked as we can make him, so that it's very clear that he was about to have sex with her, and kind of just it's super raw.
That's really interesting. I think Yes, any fight scene like Jackie Chan and stuff, those guys are in amazing shape. But this has so much trauma involved, right? And they've been making this series for 5 seasons. She's probably watched all of it. And a good actress is, of course, going to internalize what she's supposed to be feeling. So I can understand. And I think you've taken acting classes, right? So I don't actually know if that's a real thing. But internalizing the pain that you're displaying on screen, it must be tough.
Yeah, I did take an acting class. And that's actually what's interesting about it is I took a type called Meisner. And part of what you do in Meisner is you do these exercises where you sit with one partner and you guys go back and forth, like really looking into each other's eyes and talking about like how you feel. And it's interesting because when you do that, it's so easy to take on the other person's emotion. So it's kind of like an empathy exercise. Yeah. And it's really interesting because now I wonder if you take someone like Joe and you force them to do those exercises, whether he'd be able to learn how to empathize with people more, or maybe he's just like so dead he can't do it. I don't know.
I mean, have we ever tried? Come on, if you get caught for murder, anybody in this country is going to get a lifetime sentence, or at least 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, right? So in terms of rehabilitation, I don't know if that's our country's thing. Right?
Yeah, I don't think we definitely don't do it very well. Yeah.
Well, I know in Norway and Sweden, they have 20-year sentences for murder, right? 30 years, I could think if you're like really ridiculous, but a lot of that is based on rehabilitation. It's not based on just, you get 20 years and you get out. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah. But also, maybe we need to just try like Meisner acting class in jail and everything will be better. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, theater and drama in jail probably helps these motherfuckers out, right? Could be a good thing for them.
That's true. Yeah, I've actually heard that, that, and even like comedy and stand up in jail and stuff. Like I've heard all these things are, they're therapeutic. Being creative is therapeutic.
Well, Joe's gonna read, right? That's all he's gonna do, and he's gonna read.
Well, that's all he can do. He doesn't have a dick anymore, so what else is he gonna do?
I know we already talked about it, but come on, let's just end it here. Yeah. Motherfucker got shot in the dick. I get it. He's a misogynist. He's a ridiculous, terrible person, but I think it was a little quick.
It's a liberal fantasy, right? Like,
is it? Hey, all the women you guys want to be shooting dicks off, let us know. JaiAfterDark.com. No, please don't email us that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Anything else? This is really interesting. I'm feeling really bad about the male species. I don't know. Are we all like this? They said we're all like this at the end of it. Well, she didn't say that. She said the reason why women are into men like you is to run away from men like you, which I'm not 100% sure what that means, but that's what Bronte said.
She said, yes, you're right. She said that the reason why women keep the fantasy of the man like you and the reason why they fall for the fantasy of a man like you is to get away from the truth of the man like you. So basically what she's saying is shitty men like you traumatize women, and then that's why they want this fantasy of somebody's all-encompassing love. I agree with that. I mean, it's kind of what we've been
that's just great. Yeah, I like time, he sucks. Yeah, There's nothing here that redeems Joe Goldberg, and I think he's done terrorizing our Netflix screens like I started this episode, and I'm happy. Let's move on to the next.
And so what are we doing next?
Crime shit. Well, it's not crime, but we are going to be reviewing Shabnam's favorite workplace, Twitter. Breaking the Bird on Max. Yes, we are going to be doing 2 episodes next week on Breaking the Bird. Everyone, please check it out. They'll be released next Tuesday and next Thursday. That's right. Not to be confused with Flipping the Bird. No, I'm going to go do that later. Yeah. I'm going to go dingle the bird. Sorry, is that a real thing? Joe can't do that anymore. He can't dingle no birds. Later, y'all. Bye. Later. Hey, all of a sudden, we forgot, but Jai After Dark everywhere, all socials. Please leave us a review. Please rate us 5 stars. Subscribe. Yes. Yeah. Give us a review. We don't have to tell you. Look behind me if you're on YouTube. We just got these signs, right? So we're putting some effort in. Let's go. Later.